What's up, guys? My name's Miles.
And my name is Fez.
And this is The Commodity.
And today we're looking at Australia versus the United States, USA. Who would win military comparison?
Yes, this video was not suggested by anybody. It actually popped up on our home screen on YouTube. So we figured maybe it was something you guys would want to check out. With that being said, this is not a
serious comparison. Look,
yeah.
We know we're like
Allies.
Australia, British, America. We're all allies.
Right.
Like we're not.
So this would never happen.
This is literally like saying big brother, little brother, cousin versus cousin. This isn't because it's all in the same family. So
right.
We know if something happened to Australia or any of our allies, we know we'd have their back, and we know it'd be returned.
There'd never be an Australia versus United States.
So I don't want y'all to think that we're taking this seriously. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna take over. I mean, even if we had pitchforks, we'd still get beat and stuff like. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it truly doesn't matter because it will never come to that. Yeah. I would hope.
And it would be a terrible comparison anyway because the population is
vastly
different. So, guys, before we hop into this video, if you would go ahead and give us a thumbs up. It truly helps us out in getting these videos out to more people. Also, if you would go ahead and click the subscribe button and the bell notification icon, that way you guys can stay informed on our future videos. And if you'd like to help support the channel, I don't know what my problem is lately. And if you'd like to help support the channel even more and get an exclusive YouTube short shout out, click that join button down below. Let's hop in.
I wonder if they'll hear it. I didn't even like
your quiet exclusive.
Backed by popular demand is another military comparison. This time we are featuring two fairly new countries, nations that at one point in time were colonies of the United Kingdom. The USA gained its independence on July 4th, 1776.
So I read, and I mean, when I say I read literally a title to an article. I didn't like read into the article. I'm just curious now. I read that y'all are actually kind of, I don't know if denouncing or just getting rid of the British Queen as like either the head of state or whatever it is. Like she's no longer going to be anything to Australia or something like that. Let me know down in the comments. Maybe it was fake or whatever.
Yeah, I think I've seen somebody say that in one of our videos in the past. But is that true?
Yeah. And do you care, or are you sad? Are you happy? Just let us know. No arguments.
Yeah.
Curiosity.
Australia gained its independence on January 1st, 1901, when the Brits passed legislation to give the 6 Australian colonies the right to govern themselves under the Commonwealth of Australia. Unlike the USA, the country sometimes called Down Under has not vied for world dominance, although it has enjoyed a fairly good standard of living and economic prosperity. The countries are certainly not enemies unless you play Grand Theft Auto, which pits them head-to-head in a fictional conflict.
Facts.
How would they fare against each other if that were a reality? That's what we're going to find out today in this episode of the infographic show, Australia versus the United States. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so that you can be part of our notification squad. Let's start with Australia. At around 2,969,907 square miles, the country is the 6th largest in the world. Much of it is uninhabited, as many of Australia's population live close to the coast on different sides of the country. If you look at population density...
If this was a true, accurate, which I feel like it is pretty accurate representation, I'd hate to live right here.
Yeah,
I would never see anybody.
Density maps, you will see just how much of Australia's 24,659,200 people are huddled into small chunks of the country.
It's India.
Australia's indigenous Aboriginal people may have lived in the harsh environment of Central Oz, but for most Australians, much of their huge country is a no man's land.
That's ridiculous.
Australia's nominal GDP for 2016 was $1.257 trillion, making it the 13th largest GDP in the world, just above...
So I think this has changed. So let's see here, just to see. Hey, Google... What is the population of Australia?
In 2020, the population of Australia was 25,687,041.
So
it's gone up.
a million, pretty much.
Almost exactly a million.
Yeah.
Because it says 25.69, so
yeah,
almost exactly a million people. Which
is
pretty
Spain
decent
and
growth.
just below Russia. GDP per capita is $49,927.
Really?
Now, let's turn to some USA basics.
I think ours is
the
lower,
USA is also a very large country at 3,797,000 square miles, although it's way more crowded than Australia. This makes it the third largest country behind Canada and Russia, although it is very similar in size to China. It has a population of 325,365,000. The US GDP is $19.417 trillion and $57,466 per capita.
Pretty even there.
We could say the US has the world's biggest economy, but many experts now say this is China. The International Monetary Fund, CIA Factbook, and World Bank all say China is number one. An interesting article recently published by Pew Global explains that various countries around the world have a different opinion on who has the biggest GDP, with slightly more countries believing the USA is still the larger economy. One thing we know for sure is that the USA spends a lot more on its military than any other country in the world, and by a country mile too. Its military is regarded as the strongest in the world, and it probably should be, with a $611 billion defense budget, which is
way too much.
So, in reality, it's actually about $200 billion more than that.
Yeah.
Like right now, I think it's around $810 billion. And I think half of our population thinks it's perfect and amazing and blah, 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 blah. And the other half, which two of them are sitting here, thinks it's stupid that we spend that much money in our military. And that's what allies are for, is like Australia doesn't need to spend a whole bunch of money because it has allies, not just us, but other allies.
Yeah.
So I just think that that's what the allies should be, is together you have a very strong military, not independently. You have a very strong military.
Exactly.
About 3.3% of the GDP. That was for 2016, and sometimes the figure is stated as slightly less. For 2017, Donald Trump's budget for defense is around $587 billion, which is by far the biggest chunk of the USA's discretionary budget. More than a third of that goes to operations and maintenance, with just less than a quarter on military personnel. The most expensive program at the moment are those rather pricey F-35 Joint Strike Fighters. The budget for those alone was $11.6 billion in 2016 and will be $10.5 billion in 2017.
And it will
to
slowly
put that into
drop.
perspective, the Environmental Protection Agency is allocated just $7.65 billion for 2017. Australia doesn't spend much by comparison, but is still 12th on the list of the biggest defense spenders in the world. Some sources put Brazil ahead and some behind. For 2017, it will spend $24.1 billion US. According to the Australian government, it's going to spend big over the next decade, with some military media stating that the country intends to become a lethal military force. The Ministry of Defense said recently that it has a commitment to security and stability around the globe, as relations between various countries seem tenuous at the moment. Much of the money spent will go to the Navy, which is not surprising given the country's geographical location. It has also joined in the spending frenzy on the aforementioned F-35 Joint Strike Fighters. What do these two countries get for their money? In terms of feet on the ground, out of the USA's 325 million people, 1.3 million are active military personnel, and a further 811,000 act as reserve personnel. This is much larger than Australia's 61,000 active personnel and 21,000 reserves. Not surprisingly, the USA also has a lot more land equipment. In total, it has 5,884 tanks, 41,000 armored fighting vehicles, 1,934 self-propelled guns, 1,299 towed artillery, and 1,331 multiple launch rocket systems.
I know that we've seen, because we've done comparisons with other countries, but those figures are like crazy stupid.
Oh yeah, big time.
Almost 6,000 tanks.
I like how I understand what self-propelled is versus so a bullet is not technically a self-propelled,
right?
But certain types of rockets are. But I think it still sounds funny when you say self-propelled guns. So I'm thinking okay, so is there like a guy throwing it so they're propelling it?
Right.
But yeah,
only China and easily Russia outgun the USA when it comes to tank strength. This also includes some of the most fierce land equipment ever, consisting of the mighty M1 Abrams tank, the world's best.
Did he say they beat us?
To some pundits, equipment ever, consisting of the multiple launch rocket systems. Only China and easily Russia outgun the USA when it comes to tank strength.
So
I almost want to challenge that argument based off what's going on in Ukraine. Not China, but the Russia.
Because Russia's using a lot of stuff from
their
equipment's pretty old.
I think that's one thing that we're learning over this is we had this idea that they have nuclear weapons, but we had this idea that they have this the second to third largest or strongest military.
Right.
But they are struggling to deal with Ukraine.
As they should.
Thank goodness.
Yes.
This also includes some of the most fierce land equipment ever, consisting of the mighty M1 Abrams tank, the world's best according to some pundits, the M109A6 Paladin self-propelled gun, and the tried and tested TOW anti-tank missile. Australia has just 59 tanks, 2,040 armored fighting vehicles, 0 self-propelled artillery, 75 towed artillery, and 0 multiple launch rocket systems. It does have some good tanks though, which in the past were the highly rated Leopard 1s, but they have been replaced with M1 Abrams, just in much smaller quality than that of the USA. Where the United States exceeds every country on the planet is with its Air Force. As you know, the US is not shy on spending big here, and it is almost spoiled for choice. It has around 13,444 aircrafts in total.
Damn.
So, fun fact, the number 1 Air Force in the world is the U.S. Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the number 2 is?
What?
The U.S. Navy.
Really?
Many of which are the best ever made. This includes scores of F-22A Raptors, F-16 Fighting Falcons, F-15E Strike Eagles, and the expensive F-35A Lightning II. The US also has a large fleet of the McDonnell Douglas CF-18 Hornets, some of which have been converted to FA-18E Super Hornets.
McDonald's
We already know
sounds really
Australia
good
has
right now.
spent on the F-35, but a rather startling piece of news emerged in September.
Watching
and that-
something military, you're like, ooh,
Man,
I'm American.
that's why I was fat.
Australia has spent on the F-35, but a rather startling piece of news emerged in September, and that was that its 2 brand new F-35s have a major problem. They don't work, according to Australian media. The USA has also had its fair share of problems trying to get these things combat ready. Australian news reported that the planes will likely require many millions being sunk into reconstruction and upgrade before they are fully capable of fighting on the front line. The country has a total of 465
cool,
aircraft,
too.
just over 150 of which are fighter and attack aircraft. It also has a small fleet of FA-18F Super Hornets and FA-18A and B Hornets, as well as EA-18G Growlers. As for the Navy,
this
global
is just
firepower puts the
foreign
USA
to
as
me.
the
I'm like,
third strongest
lots
behind
of
China
numbers
and
and,
North Korea. This is
letters.
only in size though. It puts Australia down in 54th place. In total, the USA has 415 ships and Australia has 47 ships. The US has a total of 11 aircraft carriers, 22 cruisers, 67 destroyers, 8 frigates, 75 submarines, 0 corvettes, 9 amphibious assault ships,
not
11
Corvette
mine warfare
yesterday.
ships, and 55 patrol ships. We also have to take into account what all wealthy countries want, and that's a huge super carrier. America may have the best in the Gerald R. Ford class super carrier. Australia is also one of few nations to own aircraft carriers. While they might not be the behemoths of the US Navy, the almost new HMAS Canberra and the HMAS Adelaide are impressive beasts. The Aussies also own 11 frigates, 0 destroyers, 0 corvettes, 6 submarines, 13 patrol craft, and 6 mine warfare ships. Another thing, as you all know, the USA owns just less than half of all the world's 15,000 nuclear weapons.
That's insane.
Australia doesn't have any and doesn't seem interested in developing them. It
Thank
does,
you,
however, have
Australia.
aircraft that could deliver them. In conclusion, these 2 countries have been strong allies for a very long time. If anything did happen to break that bond, America is far too powerful for Australia. The only chance Australia would
why
have
that bond
is that
would-
harsh
I mean,
environment its people
that's
are used to
one
living in.
reason.
Maybe all
Right.
those dangerous creatures that inhabit the country would get on side. So, what do you think of this theoretical matchup?
What did he say
Those
about their...
The only long time. If anything did happen to break that bond, America is far too powerful for Australia. The only chance Australia would have is that harsh environment its people are used to living in. Maybe all those dangerous creatures that inhabit the country would get on side. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like every video that a non-Australian does uses their dangerous animals
Yeah.
as like...
The
Like,
do not come here
yeah,
type situation.
Yeah, like don't go there. Their animals are gonna kill you. And then everybody in Australia is like, just don't fuck with them.
So what's crazy is, so the U.S. technically has the hottest place on the planet, over in California. What is that place called?
Death Valley.
Death Valley. But nobody lives there.
Right.
So they basically live in Death Valley all the time. That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole nother ball game. Like it gets hot here. Like yesterday, I think it got up to like 102 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Yesterday was 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and I
Hey
think
Google, 102 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius.
102 degrees Fahrenheit is 38.889 degrees Celsius.
with like 110% freaking.
Yeah, and the real feel was like I think 110 degrees.
Yeah, it was yeah. And then I was at work and I was selling RVs that do not have their AC on.
Right.
And so realistically, I bet you it's about 120 to 130 degrees
in those units.
Like it's literally the second you walk in, it's so crazy. So you're in there talking about it. You can barely breathe because it's so thick. You could slice it with a knife, the air. And then as you walk out, it is crazy to think that a real feel of 110 degrees feels like air conditioning.
Yeah.
Like the second you walk out, you're like, oh, it feels so good out here. But in reality, it's like 110 degrees as real feel.
Well, it's just like when we were selling cars and you'd open up the car and get in it in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, and they know exactly what that's like.
Yeah, that's been like shut all summer and like somebody now wants to test drive it. Yeah. It's like that heat has just built up in that car for weeks. As soon as you get in it, like you can't fucking breathe.
And I think that the RVs are worse because of the insulation.
Yeah.
So it holds it in even worse.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. It's probably about the same because of the windows.
Right.
But
yeah, no, it sucks.
Oh, it's so
and that's
miserable.
why I'm so glad I don't sell things.
Oh, well, give it a couple months. We'll be there.
Yeah.
But the main heat will be dying down by then.
Yes, thank goodness.
But guys, if y'all enjoyed this video, please let us know. Give us some other videos. We love looking at military. I like looking at military stuff because I think I'm really a big fan of heavy equipment type stuff. Believe it or not, I would really love to start selling eventually some type of agriculture type stuff, like combines and big tractors, because I just think it's cool. Tanks, boats, carriers, like the Gerald R. Ford carrier or whatever it's called. I've watched videos about it. It's super cool. It's super big. It's technically not even that much bigger than the previous carrier class, but the technology on it is what's most impressive about it. But I really do enjoy just anything that has to do with like heavy duty equipment, military equipment, those kind of things. Like the guns don't do it for me. I could care less about the guns. I just like the heavy dutiness of the vehicles.
Exactly. I feel the same way.
Yeah, duty. You feel the same way about duty?
You're such a child.
Heavy duty. It's so heavy. Must have a very dense diet.
In this video.
But guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. If you want to see our future videos, hit the subscribe button, the bell notification. If you want to support us directly, hit that join button. And with that being said,
my name's Miles.
And my name is Fez.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Peace.